The Hadith Qudsi, Ya ibadi kullukum dal, illa man hadaytu fastahduni ahtikum. O my servants, all of you are astray except the one whom I guide. So seek guidance from me, and I shall guide you. So the Shaykh says, meaning ask him for guidance, and Allah Azza wa Jal, He will respond to your dua. If you are sincere, and this applies to any person, if you are sincere to Allah, and you seek guidance from Him, and you then you're truthful in your desire, and you pursue that guidance, then it is only Allah Azza wa Jal who is the controller of guidance. And so that's why the Shaykh then goes on to move into another area, which is the area of the world, the worldly affairs. So he says that Allah Azza wa Jal, all of us are fuqara, we are in need of Allah Azza wa Jal, because we are not in control of any harm or benefit or death or life or resurrecting anything. These traits or these qualities are denied for everything besides Allah Azza wa Jal. As we read in the Quran, وَاتَّخَذُوا مِن دُونِهِ آلِهَةً, they took others besides Him as deities. لا يخلقون شيئا وهم يخلقون لا يخلقون شيئا وهم يخلقون ولا يملكون لأنفسهم ضرا ولا نفعا ولا يملكون موتا ولا حياة ولا نشورا. So look at this ayah. They took besides Him as deities, they took others as besides Him as deities. They do not create anything, but they themselves are created. And they control neither harm for themselves nor benefit. And nor do they control death, and nor life, and nor resurrection. So look and reflect upon this ayah, and look at what it contains. It is in Surah Al-Furqan, Surah 25, verse number 3. Look at how Allah Azza wa Jal has negated these qualities of rububiyyah from the deities which are worshipped besides Him, indicating thereby the futility of worshipping those deities. So He said they worship besides Him other deities who do not create anything, so they are not able to create, but they themselves are created. So the ability to create from nothing and to put what we see Allah Azza wa Jal has put in place of causes and effects and mechanisms and so on and so forth, all of this from the creation of Allah Azza wa Jal, they are unable to do this. And nor do they control benefit and harm for themselves, let alone someone else. And nor death and life, and nor are they able to resurrect. All of these 5 or 6 qualities, right? This is a rational evidence for the futility of worshipping others besides Allah. You take anything besides Allah, whether it be an angel or a human, a jinn, a prophet, any prophet or messenger, and any of the created entities, you see that they are unable to create. You see that they are unable independently to control harm and benefit for themselves, independently, outside of the causes and the means which Allah has created. They are unable, they don't have any power over death, nor over life, and nor are they able to resurrect anything. And so this shows the futility of worshipping others besides Allah, but at the same time, what does it show? It shows that all of the affairs are in the hand of Allah Azza wa Jal, and it shows our intense need for Allah Azza wa Jal. And this leads us in fact to the third part of the hadith, Ya ibadi kullukum ja'i' illa man at'amtuhu fastat'imuni ut'imukum. This is the third part of the hadith. It leads into that now. O my servants, all of you are hungry except the one whom I have fed. So seek your food from me, and I shall feed you. And I shall feed you. So what does this indicate? It shows that Allah Azza wa Jal is Ar-Razzaq. He is the provider. He is Dhul Quwwatil Mateen, the possessor of immense strength, and that He is the one who controls all of these affairs. He creates, He controls rizq, sustenance, and He controls benefit, He controls harm, He controls death, He controls life, and He controls hidayah, guidance as well. He controls guidance. All of these things belong to Allah Azza wa Jal. Guidance we already discussed in the sense of the deen. And here in terms of the dunya, all of these affairs, these are controlled by Allah Azza wa Jal. And so we see that because He has these qualities, He's the one who He gives and He withholds and He restricts and He enlarges. Look at all of these qualities, and if you reflect upon what takes place in the creation of Allah Azza wa Jal, you will see that all of these qualities belong to Allah. First of all, He gives, al-ata. Don't you see Him giving to the mushrik and to the kafir, giving them all of the possessions of the dunya? Because they mean nothing. They are worth nothing to Allah Azza wa Jal. Yet He gives freely to the mushrik who associates partners with Him in worship day and night. He gives to him from the abundance of the world. And to the kafir likewise, the one who is a denier, a jahid, the one who is arrogant and he denies, He gives to him. This is al-ata wal-mana'. And likewise Allah Azza wa Jal, He withholds, He prevents. He will prevent from a believer. He will withhold from a believer, not give him wealth or sustenance. Why? Because this is a trial for the believer. As for the disbeliever, for the mushrik, one who was chosen misguidance, He opens the doors for him and leaves him in his, enjoyment and pastime, because these things are not worth anything to Allah Azza wa Jal. He doesn't lose anything from His dominion that a mushrik or a kafir should, enjoy these types of things. And likewise, al-qabd wal-bast. Al-qabd is to restrict, to limit. So Allah Azza wa Jal might restrict the rizq of an individual because that might be better for him. Or He might enlarge and increase the provision of someone. And that could be a trial for him, a tribulation for him. So all of these things, if you look at all of these qualities that we are mentioning in these texts, Allah creates. Allah is the creator. He's created all of this combination of all of these things that you see, the sun, the alternation of the night and the day, the air, the gases, the rain, everything that works together for the creation of rizq. He is the creator of all of that. And then He is the one who brings about harm or brings about benefit. He gives life, takes life, and then He gives and He withholds and He restricts and He enlarges. Look at all of these qualities together. Who is the owner of all of these? It is Allah Azza wa Jal. It is only Allah Azza wa Jal. And so therefore, what does all of this show? The Shaykh says that all of this now, what should we take from this? We take from this that we develop and have a feeling of extreme need from Allah Azza wa Jal. That we are the ones who are needy for every single thing, in the large affairs and in the small affairs. And the Salaf, understanding all of these issues that we mentioned, because these were ingrained into their hearts, that Allah is Ar-Razzaq, Dhul Quwwatil Mateen, that He is the one who controls benefit and harm and life and death, and that He gives and withholds and restricts and enlarges, ingrained within them, to such a degree that even if they were in need of a shoelace or a strap to mend their sandals, they would ask Allah Azza wa Jal for it. Even the smallest, minuscule, minute thing, they would ask Allah Azza wa Jal for it, because they know that ultimately all of these things come from Allah Azza wa Jal. So, the Shaykh says that even the Salaf, they used to request from Allah even the strap that had broken from their sandal or from their shoe. So do not be miserly in anything of your dua. Do not be a miser. Do not. So in other words, meaning that every large thing and every small thing, do not be miserly in your dua. Make dua to Allah Azza wa Jal. Why? Because this is ibadah. Just asking Allah for something, even in the affair of the dunya. We're not speaking about the deen now. Even in the affair of the dunya, from your rizq, from your needs, then that itself is worship of Allah Azza wa Jal. And so this dua that you make, when you make this dua for any large or small thing, what are you doing? You are manifesting certain qualities. You are showing and displaying, number one, your iftiqar, that you are in need of Allah Azza wa Jal, that you are poor and needy in front of Allah Azza wa Jal, just by making a dua for any material thing that you need. And secondly, your ajaz, that you are incapable. You are in need of Allah first of all, and secondly, you are incapable, and Allah is not incapable. You are the servant, you are the slave, and Allah is the Lord, Allah is the master. You are the one who is asking and in need, and Allah is the provider and the giver. You are manifesting this quality or these qualities when you make this dua. Likewise, you are manifesting your jahl, your ignorance, because Allah knows everything about you and your needs, what is before you, what is ahead of you, what is behind you, what will harm you, what will benefit you. Allah is the knower of all things, of what is within this creation, and you only have limited knowledge. You do not know all of the things that are beneficial for you or harmful for you. You do not know what's going to happen to you tomorrow or the day after, and so on and so forth. So because of that, when you make dua to Allah, this is an acknowledgement of your jahl, of your ignorance, of your own affairs, of what is beneficial and harmful for you. And you are ascribing perfect knowledge to Allah Azza wa Jal. And likewise, your da'af, your weakness, you are manifesting your weakness. You are a weak human who Allah has created weak, hasty, impetuous, and all these other qualities that are part and parcel, dhulm and jahl, and so on and so forth. So you are weak, and Allah Azza wa Jal is the powerful, the free of all need, the free of all wants. And so when you make dua for anything, large or small, you are manifesting all of these acts of worship, and the asking itself is an act of worship. So you are in front of the Lord of the heavens and the earth, in whose hand is every single thing. All of this now is a tremendous amount of ubudiyyah. You are displaying tremendous servitude to Allah Azza wa Jal. So this su'al, just this asking of Allah Azza wa Jal, alongside tadallul, lowering yourself, humbling yourself, al-khudu', being submissive, and showing al-iftiqar ila Allah, showing your need in front of Allah Azza wa Jal, all of this is a tremendous and lofty station to be in. It is a manzila that you have of ubudiyyah. Ubudiyyah is a tremendous situation. Why? Because Allah Azza wa Jal, He names His prophets and messengers as His slaves. The messenger of Allah is the Abdullah. This is the loftiest of titles, to be an Abd of Allah. Abdullah, one who is in servitude to Allah. So to possess this quality of ubudiyyah, it brings you the loftiest of stations, the loftiest stations that you can have. So when Allah Azza wa Jal, He intends goodness for His servant, you know that Allah has intended good for you when you find yourself standing in front of Allah Azza wa Jal in humility, humbling yourself, recognizing your weakness and all of these qualities that we mentioned, iftiqar, your ajz, your jahl, your da'af. You acknowledge all of these things and you stand humble in front of Allah, and you raise your hands and you ask Him a need from the needs of the world. Then all of this is a sign that Allah has intended good for you, that Allah has guided you to something that is good and beneficial to you. And so when you ask Him for His aid, for His guidance, for His sustenance, then this is something that Allah Azza wa Jal, He loves. He is pleased that His servant should do these affairs, that he is asked. In fact, we see that Allah Azza wa Jal has commanded in the Quran that He is to be asked. And He belittles the one who does not ask Allah Azza wa Jal and does not find himself in this state and condition of being, of feeling in need and feeling weak and feeling incapable. Any person who does not find himself in that situation and thereby ask Allah, this is criticized and condemned in the Quran. The Shaykh brings the ayah, وَقَالَ رَبُّكُمُ ادْعُونِي وَقَالَ رَبُّكُمُ ادْعُونِي أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ. And your Lord has decreed or has commanded call upon me and I shall respond to you. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ عَنْ عِبَادَتِي, to the end of the ayah. Indeed, those who are arrogant away from my worship, soon shall they enter into hellfire, to the end of the ayah. So here, a person who turns away from those things that we have mentioned, then, and does not call upon Allah, invoke Allah, then this person has been rebuked in this severe manner. And this is because dua itself is ibadah. وَقَالَ رَبُّكُمُ ud'uni, he said, ud'uni, invoke me. Why? Because dua itself is ibadah. For all of the reasons that we mentioned, that when you make dua, look at all of these feelings that are present in your heart. And it is from the greatest of the stations of ubudiyyah. So dua is asking of Allah Azza wa Jal, and so we ask Allah Azza wa Jal of rizq, and so this is our need for Allah in terms of the worldly affairs, and likewise for al-hidayah. Al-hidayah and rizq. Al-hidayah, it is clear, Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he has a beautiful statement at the beginning of his work, Al-Madarij, Madarij al-Salikin, where he speaks about the Fatiha and how we say in every rak'ah, Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, O Allah, guide us to the straight path. And he says there is a question that is asked, that if we are already guided, how can we ask for more guidance? If we are already on the path, how then can we ask Allah for guidance? And so Ibn al-Qayyim, he responds to this question, or to this objection, and he says, and he gives an example or an explanation along the following lines. You can return back to the text. It's at the beginning of Al-Madarij, in the opening few pages. So along the following line, he says, basically, if you take any Muslim and you look at how much he knows of knowledge compared to what he doesn't know of knowledge, then you'll find that he only has a small percentage of this much knowledge, right? And his ignorance is tremendous. So first of all, he is in need of guidance to that which he doesn't know of the truth. Why? Because what he knows of the truth is only minuscule. So he's the first level of guidance that he's in need of, right? Because of his jahl. Secondly, so now let's say a person only has 2% of the knowledge, of all of the knowledge in the deen, and that's being generous. Let's say 1%. Then from that 1%, how much of that knowledge does he actually have an irada to act upon it? Right? So all of us have a lot of knowledge that we have up here. So from the sum of that knowledge, how much of that knowledge do we actually have a will and an irada to want to act upon it? Right? So now that 1% of what we know, if we now include the irada where we actually have a desire to act upon it, now this shaves off a large amount of that now. So that 1% all of a sudden now becomes 0.1%. Right? Because we have more knowledge than what we have the desire to act upon. This is general for pretty much all people, except for the one whom Allah wills, from the prophets and the righteous and other, and them to whom He gives tawfiq. So now, from that which we actually have the irada to want to act upon it, how much of it do we actually manage to act upon? That's something else. Having the irada is one thing, but actually being guided to doing it is something else. So now from that, what did we say? We said 1% and then 1/10 of that, and now from that 1/10, let's say that we only managed to do, being generous, let's say half of that. So now we are on 0.1, 0.05% of what we actually managed to act upon. And then from what we act upon from that 0.05%, how much of that are we actually sincere to Allah Azza wa Jal? Is it done with ikhlas, and is it done upon correctness, upon the sunnah? And then that shaves off another large amount, right? So look at that. This means that in every moment and in every time we are in need of tremendous guidance from Allah Azza wa Jal. And also this is because guidance is of two types. There is the guidance of al-hidayah wal-irshad, which is the guidance of al-irshad, the guidance of actually being pointed to the truth, to be shown the truth. That's one type of guidance. And this is something that Allah has established by way of His prophets and His messengers and the book and the sunnah. We've been shown what is the actual guidance. This is hidayatul irshad wa dilala. And then there is the guidance of being successful in following it. This is now at-tawfiq, being granted success. This is something else, and this is what we are seeking when we ask Allah for guidance. We are asking Allah for guidance, for knowledge of the guidance, and success in following the guidance as well. So when you look at it from this point of view, you see that this dua, this supplication that we make in the Fatiha, Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, what a tremendous dua, what a tremendous supplication it actually is, because of our tremendous need for guidance at every moment of our lives. So this brings us to an end to the second and third portions of the hadith. The first portion related to dhulm, which is haram. Allah made it haram upon Himself, and He made it haram upon the servants. The second is seeking guidance from Allah Azza wa Jal in the affairs of the deen. And the third is seeking rizq from Allah Azza wa Jal, and seeking guidance likewise and assistance in the worldly affairs. This now leads us to the fourth affair, and this is the statement of Allah Azza wa Jal in the hadith, Ya ibadi, kullukum aarin illa man kasawtuh, fastaksuni uksukum. O my servants, all of you are naked, you are unclothed, except the one whom I have clothed. So seek your clothing from me, and I shall clothe you. So, the Shaykh says about this, Hafidhullah, that we ask Allah Azza wa Jal for every single thing. So long as it is not itham, as it is not something which entails a sin, or the cutting of ties. So in other words, it is permitted for us to ask for anything from Allah Azza wa Jal, as long as it is not something which entails sin, or it does not entail, or it is not the cutting of ties. Aside from that, then we can ask Allah Azza wa Jal for anything. And Allah Azza wa Jal has promised to respond, as He mentioned in many of the texts that are found in the Quran, and likewise from the prophetic statements likewise. So, the Shaykh says, from this what we take is that we display our need in front of Allah Azza wa Jal, and we request from Him everything that we need in this life of ours, whether in this life or whether in the hereafter. And so we are fuqara, we are needy. Why? Because of the affairs we mentioned earlier. We do not control harm, benefit, death, life, resurrection, sustenance, clothing, food. Why? Because all of the ways and means and mechanisms by which these things come to us, they are in the control of Allah Azza wa Jal. He controls everything, all of the ways and means by which these affairs come to us. So therefore, this is from Allah's fadl, His favour, His bounty, His generosity. So let us ask Him. And when we ask from Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah will feed you, Allah will give to you, Allah will provide for you. And this is how a person should be. He should manifest this ubudiyah to Allah. Now a person sometimes might ask, sometimes a person, he might, in his situation, when he reflects in his situation, why am I poor? Why am I needy? Why am I wanting in certain affairs? Why do I not have this? Why do I not have that? Many people pass through these states and conditions, these feelings. And if they just stopped and reflect, then perhaps they are not asking Allah Azza wa Jal. Perhaps they are not displaying their ubudiyah to Allah Azza wa Jal along the lines that we've mentioned. Allah loves that He's asked and He shall give to you. And maybe you are not doing that. Maybe you are not displaying your ubudiyah to Allah along the lines that are indicated by way of this hadith. And perhaps you're not being given. So this is something that the Shaykh is emphasizing again, this issue of ubudiyah to Allah Azza wa Jal, and Allah gives those who worship Him in this manner and manifest these qualities. Then the Shaykh goes on to mention something very important. We can finish our lesson with a discussion of this point. And this now relates to asking from the creation. Asking the makhluqeen, those who are created. We've spoken now in detail about asking the Creator, the Khaliq, the one who is the Razzaq, the one who is Dhul Quwwatil Mateen, the Creator, the Provider, the Possessor of immense strength. In contrast to this, then the Shaykh says, with respect to asking the creation, he says, وَأَمَّا سؤال المخلوقين فلا تسأل أحدا لأن الإسلام يريد منك أن تكون عزيزا ولله العزة ولرسوله وللمؤمنين. He says, as for asking the creation, do not ask anything the creation, anyone from the creation. Do not ask them for anything. Because Islam wants you to be an honorable person. He wants you to be a person who is lofty and honorable, with dignity and respect. And in the Quran we read, وَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةِ, to Allah belongs al-izzah, meaning might and honor, and to His Messenger, and to the believers. And this is actually in Surah Al-Munafiqun, the chapter on the hypocrites, Surah number 63, verse number 8. And so do not acknowledge ubudiyyah except to Allah. Do not manifest your neediness and your poverty and your incapacity and so on and so forth, the qualities that we mentioned before. Do not manifest and display those qualities except to Allah Azza wa Jal, not to any of the creation. So he says that don't humble and lower yourself and degrade yourself to any of the creation. And we shouldn't confuse this, what we are speaking of, because we are speaking about something specific here. That you degrade and lower yourself by manifesting your need for the creation, by asking the creation for needs. This should not be confused by being humble in ways that Allah has commanded you to be humble. For example, in Surah Al-Isra, we see that Allah Azza wa Jal, He commands, وَاخْفِضْ لَهُمَا جُنَاحَ الذُّلِّ مِنَ الرَّحْمَةِ. Speaking about the parents, that lower the wing of humility, of mercy, meaning to your parents. So being humble and lowering yourself, this is not the type of degrading quality that is condemned or prohibited. We're not speaking about this. Rather, this is something that Allah commands. It is from obedience to Him, that you are humble, that you are merciful, that you are modest in front of your parents, because this is something that is desirable. And likewise, as he says, وَكَذَلِكَ الطَّاعَةِ لِلْمُعَلِّمِ وَوَلِيِّ الْأَمْرِ. Likewise, when you are humble to a teacher or to the leader of the Muslims, the Waliul Amr, and all these other such things, all of this is from the bab of adab and akhlaq. This is to do with etiquette and manners, right? We are not speaking about this. These affairs are not the ibadah, ubudiyyah, right? These are not affairs which constitute the ibadah which is requested from a servant. So we must distinguish between this and between that. Between when you lower and degrade yourself by asking other people. And Allah does not want you to do this. He does not want you to do this. And this is prohibited, in fact. And there are only a number of situations in which there is an exception to this prohibition. And this is in the hal of ad-durura, of absolute necessity.